Welcome to Truth Report. I'm Alex Truth.
And I'm Maya Clarity. Tonight, we expose the threads of power, profit, and political maneuvering that bind seemingly disparate stories, revealing a darker truth beneath the surface.
From the shifting sands of global auto manufacturing and the violent aftermath of political upheaval, to the very bedrock of free press and the escalating crackdown on dissent.
We'll also dissect the political ambitions of a rising star, questioning what true leadership means when principles seem to evaporate. Prepare to look beyond the headlines.
This is Truth Report. And we start tonight with a surprising move from a major player in the electric vehicle market.
Breaking news from the automotive industry, as Electrek reports Hyundai is pausing production of its popular Kona electric SUV for the 2026 model year.
While Hyundai insists the EV is not gone for good and that 2025 models will still be available, this pause raises significant questions about the future of their EV strategy and the broader electric vehicle landscape.
On the surface, Hyundai states this is a temporary halt, but Electrek's reporting, while framing it as a pause, doesn't fully delve into the why. Is this truly just a retooling for a next-generation model, or does it signal deeper market adjustments in the rapidly evolving EV sector?
That's the critical question, Maya. Is this a proactive strategic recalibration or a reaction to unforeseen challenges? The EV market is rife with competition, fluctuating raw material costs, and complex government incentives that can make or break a model's profitability.
Indeed. We've seen other manufacturers struggle with scaling production, battery supply chain vulnerabilities, and consumer demand that hasn't always met optimistic projections. A sudden pause like this, even with assurances, hints at a corporate strategy under pressure.
Consider the broader implications. Who benefits from this pause? Hyundai, ostensibly, benefits by re-evaluating and potentially re-engineering the Kona EV to be more competitive or cost-effective. They get a chance to reset without the continuous overhead of a struggling line.
And who loses? Consumers eagerly anticipating a 2026 model, for one, who might now shift to competitors. But more broadly, it's the workforce whose jobs might be impacted, even temporarily, and the suppliers whose orders could be reduced.
This decision isn't just about one SUV, it reflects a powerful dynamic within the global automotive industry. It showcases the immense capital required to innovate in the EV space, and the corporate power wielded by giants like Hyundai to suddenly pivot, leaving ripple effects across the supply chain and consumer market.
It also highlights the fragility of the transition to electric vehicles. Governments globally are pushing mandates, but when market realities or corporate calculations don't align, these grand visions can quickly encounter speed bumps, revealing the raw power of corporate decision-making over public policy ambitions.
This pause might seem minor, but it's a stark reminder that even the green revolution is ultimately driven by corporate bottom lines and a constant re-evaluation of profit margins in a volatile global economy.
From corporate boardrooms to the treacherous streets of Libya, our next story uncovers the brutal realities of power struggles in a fractured nation.
Al Jazeera is reporting on the treacherous assassination of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the son of former Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, who was killed by four masked men.
This shocking event underscores the persistent instability and the cycle of violence plaguing Libya since the 2011 overthrow of his father. The term assassination immediately raises red flags about who orchestrated this and why now.
Saif al-Islam was not just Muammar Gaddafi's son, he was seen as his father's potential successor and had, at times, attempted to re-enter the political fray, even contemplating a presidential run. His elimination sends a clear message.
Al Jazeera's report highlights the brutality, but the deeper context is the power vacuum that has persisted for over a decade. Libya remains a battleground for numerous militias, regional powers, and international actors vying for influence and control over its vast oil wealth.
Precisely. His presence, however diminished, represented a connection to the old regime and a potential rallying point for certain factions. His death removes a complicated figure from the board, but it doesn't solve the underlying issues of governance or justice.
Who benefits from Saif al-Islam Gaddafi's assassination? Clearly, any of the numerous armed groups or political factions that feared his potential resurgence or simply wanted to eliminate a symbolic threat to their own power bases. His death simplifies the battlefield for some.
And who loses? Libya, ultimately. Every extrajudicial killing, every act of targeted violence, further erodes the rule of law and the prospects for genuine reconciliation and stability. It perpetuates the cycle of revenge and distrust that has crippled the nation.
This assassination is a stark illustration of how international interventions, however well-intentioned, can leave a devastating power vacuum, allowing proxy wars and internal conflicts to fester for years. The absence of a strong, unified state means that disputes are settled not through law, but through violence.
It connects directly to the broader power structures of geopolitical influence. Libya's oil reserves mean external powers, from Europe to the Middle East, have vested interests in who controls the country. Assassinations like this are often symptoms of these larger, unseen hands at play, manipulating local conflicts for strategic gain.
The masked men are just the instruments. The real beneficiaries are those who stand to gain from a weakened, fragmented Libya, ripe for exploitation. This isn't justice, it's a brutal chess move in a deadly game.
And speaking of foundational structures being undermined, our next story brings us home, to the very institution designed to hold power accountable, the press.
In a devastating blow to American journalism, Al Jazeera reports that the Washington Post has announced massive layoffs, affecting approximately one-third of its newsroom.
The report is stark. Critical beats like sports and international coverage are being largely gutted. This isn't just a corporate restructuring, it's an alarming cut to the public's access to vital information and independent scrutiny.
To lose one-third of a newsroom at a paper of the Post's stature is catastrophic. It reflects not only the severe economic pressures facing traditional media but also raises questions about the long-term vision of its ownership, particularly Amazon founder Jeff Bezos.
This isn't merely about declining ad revenue. A paper like the Washington Post, with its storied history of investigative journalism, has a public service mandate. Gutting international coverage in an increasingly interconnected world leaves a gaping hole in our understanding of global events.
Think about who benefits from this kind of reduction. The owners, perhaps, by streamlining operations and cutting costs to boost profitability. Short-term financial metrics are prioritized over the essential function of a robust, independent press.
And who loses? Everyone. The public loses a critical watchdog, particularly on complex international issues where nuanced reporting is crucial. Journalists lose their jobs, often after dedicating their careers to upholding democratic values.
This move by the Washington Post isn't isolated. It's part of a broader, decades-long trend of media consolidation and the erosion of local news. When fewer, larger entities control the narrative, and those entities prioritize profit over public good, the very fabric of democratic discourse begins to unravel.
It's a fundamental challenge to the Fourth Estate. When papers that once broke stories like Watergate are forced to gut their international bureaus, it signals a deeper problem about the value society, and increasingly, corporate owners, place on serious, fact-based reporting.
The power structures at play here are clear: corporate ownership dictating editorial capacity, and by extension, the scope of public knowledge. It's a dangerous precedent that weakens accountability and allows powerful interests to operate with less scrutiny.
From the erosion of the press in the US to the suppression of dissent in Europe, our next story exposes the growing authoritarian creep.
Al Jazeera reports that Hungary has jailed a German activist, Mayati, for 8 years, over attacks on participants at Budapest's Day of Honor, a major neo-Nazi event.
8 years. That is an exceptionally harsh sentence for what are described as attacks during a counter-protest. This isn't just a legal judgment, it's a political statement by the Hungarian government.
The Day of Honor is not just any rally. It's an annual commemoration of Nazi German and Hungarian soldiers who fought Soviet troops in World War II. It attracts neo-Nazis and far-right extremists from across Europe.
So, an activist targeting participants at a major neo-Nazi gathering receives an 8-year sentence, while the event itself, celebrating Nazi-affiliated figures, is permitted to proceed annually. This stark contrast screams of a state prioritizing the rights of fascists over the efforts to counter them.
This aligns perfectly with the increasingly authoritarian stance of Hungary's government under Viktor Orbán, which has systematically eroded democratic institutions, curtailed judicial independence, and cracked down on dissent in civil society organizations.
Who benefits from this draconian sentence? The Hungarian government benefits by sending a chilling message to any activists, domestic or international, who dare to challenge the state's increasingly right-wing agenda or confront far-right movements within its borders.
And clearly, far-right and neo-Nazi groups benefit. They see their right to assemble protected, even glorified, while those who oppose their hateful ideology are severely punished. It emboldens them and legitimizes their presence.
Who loses? The rule of law, human rights, and the fundamental right to protest against extremism. It's a direct attack on anti-fascist movements and a clear signal that challenging the rising tide of the far right in Hungary comes with severe consequences.
This case exposes the broader power structures at play in modern Europe. We are witnessing governments, like Hungary's, actively undermining democratic norms, weaponizing the judiciary, and providing cover for extremist ideologies under the guise of order or national sovereignty.
It's a grim reminder that the fight against fascism is far from over, and in some corners of Europe, the state itself is becoming complicit in its resurgence, using its power to crush opposition rather than protect its citizens from hate.
From the global stage to the political theater here at home, our final story examines a figure poised for higher office and the criticisms already dogging his path.
The Intercept delivers a sharp critique of California Governor Gavin Newsom, stating his biggest problem is Gavin Newsom and that he's stood for nothing as he gears up for a potential 2028 presidential bid.
This isn't just political punditry, it's a deep dive into Newsom's record and perceived lack of a consistent ideological core. The Intercept, known for its progressive investigative journalism, is scrutinizing his political evolution, or lack thereof.
The accusation that he stood for nothing suggests a politician whose positions are adaptable, perhaps too much so, to the prevailing political winds or corporate interests. This raises questions about authenticity and principled leadership.
The Intercept's article implies that while Newsom projects a progressive image, his actual legislative record and policy decisions, especially regarding corporate power and environmental issues, don't always align with that facade. This creates a vulnerability for his future ambitions.
Who benefits from a politician perceived as lacking a core ideology? Special interest groups and corporate donors, who find flexibility and an open door for influence. A leader without strong principles can be swayed by the strongest lobby.
And who loses? The electorate, particularly those seeking leaders with clear, unwavering commitments to specific causes or ideologies. Voters yearn for conviction, and a perceived lack of it can lead to disillusionment and distrust in the political process.
This critique connects to a broader power structure within American politics, where the need to appeal to a broad base often dilutes genuine policy commitments. Fundraising pressures and the demands of constant campaigning can push politicians towards ambiguity rather than clarity.
The Intercept is essentially arguing that Newsom embodies a system where political ambition can trump substantive policy. The focus becomes more on charisma and electability than on a consistent vision for governing or challenging entrenched power.
It highlights the cynical reality that in the race for the highest office, a carefully crafted image can sometimes replace a robust, principled record. This makes it harder for voters to discern who truly represents their interests versus who represents the political establishment.
The critique against Newsom isn't just about him, it's about the state of our political landscape, where the appearance of leadership often overshadows the substance of governance, leaving citizens questioning where true power resides.
From the global assembly lines to the highest echelons of political ambition, we've uncovered a stark pattern tonight, Maya.
Absolutely, Alex. What ties these seemingly disparate stories together is a pervasive narrative of power consolidating, accountability eroding, and the public's interests being systematically sidelined for corporate profit or political gain.
Whether it's Hyundai's unilateral decision impacting global supply chains and consumers, or the Washington Post gutting essential journalism, we see corporate power dictating the flow of information and resources, often with little transparency or public recourse.
Then there's the brutal, unchecked violence in Libya, where international interventions have left a vacuum for proxy wars and extrajudicial killings, illustrating how geopolitical power plays destabilize entire regions for years, with human life becoming a mere casualty.
And in Hungary, we witnessed the chilling weaponization of state power. A disproportionate sentence against an anti-fascist activist serves as a stark warning, showing how governments can actively suppress dissent while enabling extremist ideologies.
Finally, the critique of Gavin Newsom isn't just about one politician, it's a reflection of a political system where perceived principles can be fluid, and the pursuit of power sometimes overshadows genuine commitment to public good. It questions who truly benefits from this political ambiguity.
The pattern is clear: a world where economic forces, often driven by global corporations, dictate national priorities, where the truth-tellers are silenced or financially starved, and where political power is increasingly concentrated and wielded to protect specific interests, not necessarily the broader public.
These stories aren't just headlines, they are symptoms of a systemic imbalance. They demand that we not just consume the news, but actively question who pulls the strings, who benefits, and what the real cost is to society when these powerful forces operate unchecked.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Truth Report.
We urge you to seek out independent journalism, support those who hold power accountable, and never stop asking the difficult questions. Your vigilance is our greatest defense.
Good night.
Good night.